Hello everybody, it's Robbie here, and I'm coming to you today with a walkthrough, a review, and also a demonstration of ShillerLearning's Math Kit 1. Now, ShillerLearning is a Montessori at home program. They have a language arts and they have a math. They have 2 language arts kits that start from preschool and go all the way through proficient reading, probably about age 8 or 9. And the math has 2 kits as well, actually 3 kits. I'll explain in a minute, but their program goes from preschool all the way through pre-algebra. So they have a kit 1, which is preschool through about the end of 3rd grade, which is what I have here. Oops, sorry, I hit my camera. They also have a fractions kit, which is just fractions. And it goes from about whenever you feel comfortable starting fractions with your child, maybe 2nd, 3rd grade, all the way through pre-algebra for fractions. And then they have a kit 2, a math kit 2, which is approximately 4th grade through pre-algebra. So these books are actually meant to be leveled. They're not really meant to be grade level. So this would be, have your preschool materials through about the end of 1st grade. If you want to just generally, generalize here on these, this would be about the 2nd grade level, and this would be about the 3rd grade level. But this is a Montessori at home program. So the scope and sequence of Montessori is different than a traditional schedule. The basis for Montessori is that they learn they learn their concepts based on developmental ability and not on a specific scope and sequence. And they take concrete tools, which you can see there's a lot of manipulatives here. There's a lot of tools. They're all meant to take a student from learning concepts through concrete materials and then gradually getting into the abstract method of doing math. One thing that I have come to find out about, most people when they hear about Schiller is they really have a hard time kind of wrapping their head around how it works. This looks like it would be really overwhelming to some people, and I can promise you it is not at all. It is completely open and go. You don't need to know anything about Montessori to do this program. And you can find videos galore on how to do this for preschool. But when you get beyond that, it's really hard to find stuff. And sourcing materials becomes really difficult. And so being able to actually have a curriculum that will allow you to do Montessori at home is a beautiful thing, because I am that person who knew nothing about Montessori, was able to literally, from day one, open a book and immediately start. So let's kind of go through what comes in the kit. We do have 3 books here. We have level 1, level 2, and level 3. I already explained, generally speaking, how those levels work. This is your mat. I'm going to move this out of the way. Montessori children or students work on a mat. So this is really soft. It's really big. And so they have a big area to work from. And so you can do this on the floor. You can do this at the table. You can do this however you want. But they do provide a learning mat in the kit, in all of the kits, actually. Let me move that out of the way. You get a set of dominoes, a set of wooden shapes, and this bag also, which has some of the wooden shapes in it, so it would kind of stand up for me to make it pretty. To be honest with you, I'm not sure if the Montessori flashcards come with the kit, because I've been told that they're now coming with the kit, but my kit didn't have them. I have them because I actually work for Schiller, so I guess I need to be transparent about that. I do work for Schiller, but I don't use Schiller materials because I work for Schiller. I started using Schiller materials, and then they approached me about working for them, and I help manage a booth at some of the more local conventions here in the area. So they absolutely want the people that represent their company at these conventions to be users of the curriculum. So they don't hire somebody and then ask that they use the materials. They seek out people who are already using the materials and are happy with them, and it's working for them. before they, decide to hire somebody. So that's that. But I did want to be transparent about that. I do work for them. So my kit didn't come with these, but I had somebody else tell me that they are coming with them. Either way, these are just Montessori flashcards. This is the binder that comes with the Math Kit 1, and this is the parent guide. So remember I said how open and go this was? I remember when I first opened my kit and I saw this parent guide, I was like, really? This is all there is to it? And truly it is. It's just a few pages. And because it doesn't need a lot of explanation before you're able to use it. So literally it's just, 6 or 8 pages long, and that's all there is to the parent guide. You get measuring cups. You get this mirror, which the mirror they use for symmetry and other things like that. You get a clock. You get a balance. You get all of these decimal materials. So you've got your tens, your ones, your hundreds, and 1,000 block. So because you need way more than one 1,000 block, you get these cardboard 1,000 blocks, which come in a package like this. So they come apart and fold flat or lay flat, and then you can fold them and connect the tabs, and then you've got your blocks. So if you don't have space to store a bunch of blocks in this form, you can literally just flatten them out and store them that way. You get the foam ball, which is used a lot, I will say. You get some crayons, and you get the number tiles here, which these tiles actually represent the decimal set units. And then you have the operator tiles, which have your less than, greater than, not equal to, equal, minus, plus, multiplication, division, all of those operator tiles. So that's what comes in there. It also comes with these number tiles. So you've got your thousands, your hundreds, tens, and your fives, and they're all color-coded. You notice they match up here. They're color-coded, so that helps your student remember the place values. Oh my gosh, that is a monster heavy cat. He's huge. Okay, so you get this wooden tray to work from as well. And then of course you notice that these tiles are all stored in these really nice wooden boxes. They have slide on lids. That wasn't meant to happen. Let's try this one. I only have the little unit cubes holding these up. No, this goes on the other side. This comes in from there. But anyway, this is your cover for that. So that is basically what comes in the kit. So now I'll just talk a little bit about how these tools are used, and then I will switch views and do a walkthrough of the books and talk about how this has worked for us. Okay, so the dominoes are used in many different ways. They obviously can be used for addition and subtraction facts. They can be used for multiplication. They're used a lot for, say, the student, all the dominoes go into the bag, and the student is required to pull out and search for all the dominoes that add to 5, for instance. So then they would go and they would seek out all the dominoes that add to 5. And then they would maybe write equations to represent these dominoes. That's one way those dominoes are used. So you'll see a number of different uses for those. The wooden shapes are used for probability. They're used for, obviously, geometry. Say, for instance, probability, the teacher is directed to put X number of blue shapes and X number of yellow shapes in the bag, and then the student is asked what the likelihood of drawing a blue shape would be out of the bag. So there's probability with those. Your measuring cups obviously are used for measuring and for volume. You've got the die here, which again can be used for multiplication and addition, subtraction facts. This ball is used a lot. So let's say you're drilling your facts. Rather than, having flashcards and that sort of thing exclusively, you might say, okay, today we're going to work on, the adding of twos. So what is 5 plus 2? And you throw the ball, and then they have to give you the answer and throw the ball back. And then, what is 6 plus 2? And you throw the ball, and then they have to throw the ball back. And you can work on your facts using the ball, and it doesn't seem like work. It seems more like play. And it also prevents them from having to think too much. Like they're just giving you the answer that's off the top of their head. And then there's some tips and tricks, that they give you that are kind of Montessori based on how to handle like wrong answers and that sort of thing. So instead of saying, nope, that's wrong, like let's say you say, well, what's 5 plus 2? And you throw them the ball and they say 6. And they throw the ball back and you say, well, what's 4 plus 2? And you throw them the ball and then they're like, oh, wait, that's 6. And you throw the ball back to you. And then you can say again, well, what's 5 plus 2? And then they'll self-correct that way. So that's a Montessori strategy for the the correction of wrong answers, and to help them learn from their mistakes rather than feel like they've gotten it wrong and possibly then, getting a little defeated over that. So we also have the coins for money. We have the CD, which has songs that teach different concepts. So another thing about this program, and I don't truly know if this came from Montessori or not, but this program in particular will teach every concept in every learning style. So whether they're visual or tactile or kinesthetic or auditory learners, every concept will be taught in all 4 learning modalities. So because of that, most kids have a dominant learning style, and so they will get all of the concepts in their dominant learning style. So, for instance, we've tried programs that weren't really geared toward my son's dominant learning style, and so we struggled with those. My son is not an auditory learner, so watching videos with an instructor teaching, you would think, there's some visual, there's a visual aspect to that, but because there's a lot of auditory processing needed for that style of teaching, it didn't work well for him. So this has worked much better. And most young students are kinesthetic when they're young. So that may not be their dominant learning style as they get older, but most students have, when they're young, they're very tactile and very kinesthetic because, or at least very tactile because, like little kids, little young babies will put things in their mouth. They want to touch things, and it's instinctive that they do that. So it takes a while to grow out of that. So they like to touch and feel things, and that's a very tactile way of learning. So this will cover all of the different concepts in both a tactile and a visual, auditory, and kinesthetic way. So, and the kids who are very energetic and they need to move around while they're doing stuff, you've got the ball toss, you've got with the songs, you've got different movements and things that they're instructed to do. Some of the lessons give them those kinds of instructions, kinesthetic movements to do as they're completing the lesson. So you will get all of that with this course. So that's been tremendously helpful for us. Okay, so I kind of explained these before I knocked them over. These again represent the decimal tiles. So again, the Montessori method is to go from concrete to abstract. So they start with the decimal tiles. As they work with their ones, they're working with the units, they're working with the tens and the hundreds and the thousands. They then graduate to working with these tiles. and then they will go to the abstract where they're working the problems out on paper. So by doing that, they get conceptual understanding of math that many times doesn't happen with even really good students. Students can be really good at math and they can procedurally do the math. They just don't understand why they're doing it. And some people, that really is frustrating for them. So anyway, you get some crayons, which we haven't used because we have plenty of crayons, but the crayons will be used in the book. The student will be asked to, color every fifth number red or something along those lines. And so that's why they include the crayons. And then you also get a ruler because you're going to be doing measurements with the ruler, of course. So let's say we're starting to add numbers and we're learning about, building numbers. So 9,515. Okay. So they'll build these numbers and then do their addition using the decimal tiles. So not only are they understanding that the place value system, ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, but they're getting expanded notation. 9,000 plus 500 plus 10 plus 5 is 9,515. So that's what these tiles are used for. These are heavily used. The clock is, simple. You've probably seen these before. But what I like about this clock is that as the minute hand turns, the hour hand turns in the same way that a normal clock would turn. So, yeah. So okay, I think that's pretty much it. Oh, this. Let me show you this. Okay, so this is a binder that comes with the kit, and it includes the check sheet so you can make sure you have all your materials. It includes a log. So let's say you decide to go out of order in your lessons, or let's say you come into the middle of the program, kind of like we did. We started with book 2 because we didn't start this from the beginning. You can do the diagnostic tests, and they will indicate where the gaps are in this program because it does teach things in a different sequence. So there were a number of lessons that we needed out of book 1, and after we did all the diagnostic testing, because each question in the test will refer back to the lesson that the concept came from. So you can easily go back and review if you need to. So I recorded the lessons that we needed to do, or let's say you do them out of order. You can use the index to go to the appropriate lessons and do it more based on maybe a different sequence, more traditional sequence, or in a more self-directed, student self-directed way, and then you can just record the lessons that you've done so you're not trying to remember all of that. So you get a number of these. This is the addition sheet. So when you start doing the addition, they'll learn how to do the addition via the materials, and then they can practice different addition problems using these sheets. And they give you quite a few, but you also get a download of more of these, so you can print as many off as you need to. There's a subtraction sheet as well. There's a multiplication sheet, I'm pretty sure. Multiplication sheet. And is that it? Yes. And then that's just a catalog of materials that come from Schiller. Okay, so, the one thing that I thought of as I was going through this book here that I didn't mention is that when you get a full kit from Schiller, it also comes with, of course, it comes with the printed materials, but it also comes with a PDF version of all the printed materials. So you'll get printed PDF versions of all of these practice sheets. You'll get a PDF version of the books themselves. So, the nice thing about that is if you have multiple students, not every page in the book is a consumable, but if you have a consumable page and a student uses that, and you've got another one that's younger that comes up, comes along later, you can just print that one page when you need it, instead of having to buy a whole new set of consumable materials. So I wanted to make sure I brought that part up too. So, all right, I hit the camera again. I'm going to change camera angles and we'll go through the books. I am back and I have book 1 in front of me. So I'll use this book to kind of explain how each of the books are organized. So lesson book 1, again, starts at the preschool level and goes through about the 1st grade level. And it does cover things in a different scope and sequence than what you might be used to in many cases. When we started this for 2nd grade, I did the diagnostic testing for this particular book and found that there were probably 30 or so lessons, if not more, 30 to 40 lessons that we needed to cover in here, because they cover rows and columns and Roman numerals and just some things that we hadn't covered, some terminology that we hadn't talked about before. So the book has a table of contents which indicates what each lesson covers, right? But then it also has a index that will give you everything that's covered in the book by topic. So this is where I was talking about how in Montessori, traditional Montessori, students will do self-directed learning for math and basically everything that they learn in Montessori. But so if you wanted to do that, or let's say you're on a subject, you're working with money, and they're having a lot of fun with that, and they want to continue to do lessons on money, you can basically just go to the next lesson that deals with money and cover that, and then use the log sheet to record that you've done a lesson out of sequence, so that when you get to that, you won't repeat it. So anyway, you've got addition, comparisons, counting, date and time, and you notice there's not a lot here on date and time in this book. And the reason for that is because time is very abstract. And so again, working with concepts that are developmentally appropriate, in some cases, the concepts that are being taught are typically taught later. And in fact, I find that's the case more often than not, is that a concept is introduced earlier than it typically would in a traditional scope and sequence. Or in some cases, like time, it will be introduced later than what is typically introduced in a traditional school curriculum. So date and time is very abstract. Kids don't really have a concept of time. And what I was finding with mine is that as we would work on time, I would just be hitting these brick walls, and we were getting very frustrated. The concept of yesterday, today, and tomorrow was very difficult to understand. The other reason why we decided to try this is because we were running into problems with memorizing math facts. So the curriculum that we had been using was very much wanted the student to memorize their math facts for addition and subtraction, and we were struggling with it. So it wasn't a conceptual problem. He understood conceptually what addition and subtraction was, but he wasn't able to memorize those math facts the way this particular curriculum had wanted him to, and we were relying way too much on the manipulatives. And so I thought to myself, I don't want to do another year of single-digit addition and subtraction, because that just seems like a big waste of time to me. So somebody at the charter school had told me about this program, and that it introduces concepts based on developmental ability, and that it does not focus on memorization of math facts, and that the philosophy with Montessori is, or at least with this program, is that the memorization of math facts will come with usage. So that's really what sold me. I think I was actually pretty much sold based on that one aspect alone, even before I got to look at the materials. So I wanted to throw that out there anyways. We're going through this, date and time comes up later. In fact, they don't introduce much about time until book 3. So if you want to introduce it sooner, obviously you can. I mean, we did, because that was just the thing to do. And so we started at kindergarten, even though I kept hitting my head against a brick wall, we just kept kind of plugging at it. And so by the time we got to book 3, he had pretty much got it down. But when I go through book 3, I'll kind of explain what happened at that point that really surprised me. So anyway, because you have all the books available to you, you can introduce a concept whenever you want because everything's indexed. Okay, so decimals, direction, division, equations, and the equal sign, estimation, geometry, groups, inequalities, length, logic, money, multiplication, numbers, ordinal, patterns, or numbers cardinal, numbers ordinal, patterns, polygons, probability, Roman numerals, rotation, rules, sets, signs and symbols, subtraction, tables, rows and columns, transportation, verbal problem solving, volume, audio CD. Basically, this is all the lessons that have the songs in them. Bag with the string tie, lessons that use that bag, and balance, ball, circles, coins and bills, crayons. I think it's interesting that they are organizing these by manipulative. I think that's fun. So like if your child loves playing with the die or the dice, you can then go and find all of the in this book there's only one, but the other books will have more. All the lessons that have to do with the dice or the ball or the circles or the coins. Anyway, I think that's cool. Crayons, decimal number and tray, dice, dominoes, geometric shapes, household objects, measuring cup, number cards, number grids, operator cards, and sign cards. So again, if you're starting and maybe you've already got a student that already knows these things, you can skip lessons that are concepts that they already know, or you can do the placement test. So I'll show you one of the placement tests as well. Here's one that uses a song. Now every lesson will have this little box up at the top that tells you the objective, what manipulatives you use, the learning styles that are going to be this lesson is taught in, and whether or not it's a consumable page. So as you can see here, there's nothing, this says consumable no. So you don't write on this page. It's a song. It gives you the lyrics to the song. So it's auditory and kinesthetic because there are movements that go along with this song. This is teaching the concept of right and left. And you play the song, do the movements that it indicates, and then it will, because it tells you in the song, wave your right hand, now wave your left hand, wiggle your right foot, now wiggle your left foot. So I really appreciate this. So when you start your lesson, it tells you what tools you're going to need. In this case, it's just the CD or the downloadable music. So you know right up front what you need to start the lesson. So this is why it's open and go. You literally can open it to any lesson and just do it. So here, okay, we're on lesson 66. Here's the objective. Learn about order and recognize differences in collections of objects. You only need a pencil, okay? Learning styles, visual, and is it consumable? No. And you'll notice here, as a lesson goes, as you go through a lesson, anything in quotes is what the parent or teacher says to the student. So it'll give instructions, lay out 3 unit cubes, and then in quotes it says which number card shows the number of units. So this is what you would say to address to the student. So it's completely scripted. And then it gives you a tip here, try varying the number of units a few times until a student is confident. Praise correct answers by saying, for example, yes, there are 3 units and you brought me the number card for 3. So if the student picks the wrong number card, say, there are 5 units. You must put back this number card and bring me the number card for 5. Oh, no, there are 5 units. You may put back this number card and bring me the number card for 5. So you're not telling them they got it wrong. You're giving them an opportunity to correct their mistake. So they brought you the wrong number card. So you ask them that they may bring you the correct number card. So again, this is a very Montessori way of phrasing this question. You may use whatever tools you would like to solve this problem. You may put this back. You may go get this. You may do that. It's just sort of a showing respect for the child and not being just giving them orders. But, and again, whether you agree or don't agree with that philosophy, this course will utilize that verbiage because it is, based on Montessori principles. So here's another song. And now here is a diagnostic test. So, okay, I say diagnostic test. If you're doing this, it's a review test. But the review test can be used as diagnostic test to figure out where to start in the program. If you know you're coming into the middle of it, there's a downloadable version of where all of the review tests are compiled into one file, one PDF. And so you can take that and do the necessary review test just to figure out where to start your student. So, for instance, this question, if they get it wrong, it tells you where the lessons are found that cover this concept. So lessons 1, but this is basically book 1, lesson 61, book 1, lesson 73, book 1, lesson 86, book 1, 97, book 1, 108. And every question has that. So it makes it really easy for you to figure out where to place them if you're using these as diagnostic tests. It also makes it really easy to figure out whether or not your student has mastered a concept, because if they get a question wrong, you can go back and do a review if you want to. It is a spiral program. It's not a mastery program. So all the concepts will spiral around. And so for us, it's kept the boredom factor way down because we had previously used a mastery program and he was just getting bored with doing the same thing over and over again. So this keeps it really fresh and you're constantly rotating subjects, through. And if you don't like that approach, again, you can use the index and go topically if you want to. But if you just go from cover, to cover through this program, it is going to spiral instead of, master a concept and then move on. So the diagnostic tests can be quite lengthy, in my opinion. So we never did this in one sitting. So anyway, that's kind of a walkthrough of book 1. Here is a page that's consumable. And again, in the beginning, you're not doing a lot of writing, the student isn't, because they're just learning to write. And there are lessons in here that give them practice on writing different numbers. So this is showing the strokes, and then they put it together. And that's my understanding. I think people were getting confused. They thought the student was supposed to write these separately. So I think the newer books have these joined. But either way, that's just something you can direct your student to do. But it does cover all the numbers and give them practice doing that. And again, you've got a PDF version of this. If they need additional practice, you can print off additional pages if you want to, or just use scratch paper. But I wanted to just emphasize that you can print off multiple pages of these if you want to. Okay, so towards the end, of course, they're starting to write. They're starting to write equations. This is a visual and auditory lesson. They're taking directions from you and they're getting to write. So it's a visual, plus that there's some images here that they can look at for this lesson. Here they're starting to solve simple equations. And then here's another review test. Okay, so that's book 1, essentially. And this is book 2. Now it's organized the same exact way. So it's got your table of contents. And for whatever reason, the index in this book and the book 3 are in the back. So there's a manipulative index and a concept index. What's a good example of a lesson in here? Okay, so here you're using the number tiles plus your operation tiles. So again, this is a visual and a tactile lesson. It's not consumable. They get number patterning. And so again, they're starting to introduce skip counting. And what's interesting about this is you'll see a lot of these really simple, what you might consider simple lessons. Write 4 as an addition as many ways as you can. So in this case, it's algebraic thinking and math facts. So if I can find one, okay, we're talking about parallel lines, polygons, so you've got your geometry here. Oh, am I going to be able to find this? That's the beauty of editing, right? If it takes me a while, I can just edit out my searching. Oh, okay, this is a good one. Okay, this is an example of how the songs work. So typically when a new concept is introduced, you'll get a song lesson. And so this one is introducing the, it says reinforce understanding of the relationship between units, tens, hundreds, and thousands. So this is talking about regrouping. So before they start doing addition with regrouping, they're going to get this song. And the verse is trade them in when you get to 10. Trade them in when you get to 10. Trade them in. So by the time they're done with this song, they understand that when you get to 10, you trade it in. So it's teaching regrouping, okay? So then they start getting a lesson on regrouping, okay? And they start with 4 digits. So they won't start with just 2 digits, they'll start with 4 because it's really just as easy to do 4-digit as it is to do 2-digit. So rather than, this takes the intimidation factor out of it. And I remember when I first saw this lesson, I thought, oh no, there's no way that we're going to be able to do this. And so but you're using the tools to do it. So when we got done and he saw that he was able to get the correct answer, he was really proud of himself. And so it was really eye-opening to me to see. That was kind of when I had my epiphany about how this program works and how well it was going to work. Because remember, we started with this book. So anyway, this is going to be a lesson I'm going to demonstrate here later. And if you want to see the demonstration and you don't want to hear anymore at this point, I'm going to put the timestamp here so you can go to that. All right, so then, you do 4-digit addition with regrouping, and then you'll see a simple lesson like this. And again, it's just the math facts. Remember I mentioned that you learn the math facts through usage with this program rather than drilling. So that's what they're doing, is they're pulling in the math facts, getting them to think algebraically as well, and that way they're learning the math facts through usage. And it's a lot more gentle approach, but still just as effective. Again, this is one on, again, learning these terms, the quantitative terminology, quintet. They're learning that 5 is a quintet, and then they have to pick that out. So, anything else here? This is a fun way to use a number line, and they've got the little kitty cat. And where does the kitty cat, end up after they jump X number of places? This is showing division. So they're going to start using the number cubes to illustrate multiples and division. So that this is a group of 10. This group of 10 can be divided into 2 5s. It can also be divided into 5 2s, or it can be divided into 10 1s. And so you'll see a lesson like this scattered throughout, as they learn these concepts. So again, the conceptual learning is phenomenal. Now, if you're wondering, like how would a student compare to a traditionally schooled student if they're using this program? So because we're using this program through a charter school, we are required, is a strong word, we're encouraged to do standardized testing, and they use MAP testing for a lot of, for the math and the reading. And so he's always tested a year ahead. And again, that's why when I say he's going into 3rd grade, but we're doing 4th grade materials, that's kind of what I mean. He's doing a year ahead. He did this when he was technically in 1st grade. He did book 2 because he did the 1st grade materials when he was technically a kindergartner. So this, and he's always tested right on par with that level. So when he was in 1st grade, he tested as a 2nd grader. So then we moved into this book. So this is when they really go into more of the concrete way of doing math and you start doing it more on paper, this is where they're really going more into division and multiplication and calendar work and time and all of that. And I watched his MAP scores from the fall, the beginning of the school year we did this book, to the winter. It jumped 20 points. Like, that's exponential. Like, at that point he's testing into almost 6th grade math when he, after just a few months of doing this book. So it really works. I can honestly attest to that. Conceptually, he has understanding of math. He can do math in his head that I have to do on paper. So I won't go a whole lot into book 3, but it does. Again, it's got the table of contents, and then it's also got the index in the back by concept and manipulative. Okay, so I said I would mention the time thing. Okay, so we get to some of these lessons on time, and I think to myself, oh, we've already got that. We already know these. I could probably skip these. But I decided to quiz him anyway, and sure enough, he kept forgetting 2 months out of the year when we go through the sequence of months. There were some things about the calendars that he didn't know, and there were things that related to time that we had to go over and solidify. So but the thing is, they'll move really fast through those topics because they're developmentally ready for it. They understand more abstract concepts, and they don't, they get it a lot faster. So whether you choose to wait and introduce those concepts is completely up to you. But if you do wait, you'll find that they learn it a lot quicker, they understand it a lot faster, and then, you get through it a lot faster. Schiller is also, this was not sponsored in any way by Schiller, although I do work for them. They did not ask me to do this video. They are not sponsoring it. I did not get any kind of, I'm not getting paid or any reimbursement. I didn't even, I have a demonstration kit, but this kit came through the school. Like, they didn't even give me a kit in exchange for my review or anything like that, but they did graciously give me a code for you, so you can get a discount. There's a 15% discount that you can use through September 5th of 2019. And it is Purposeful 19, all caps, Purposeful 19. There are options. So you've got a full kit, which includes everything I showed you, a basic kit, which eliminates a few of the items that are more commonly found, and it's got a digital kit as well. So anyway, that's it for now. All right, so this is a problem 2,575 plus 4,582. So I showed this to my son when we first get to this, which was early in book 2. And I asked him if he thinks he can solve this problem, and his answer was no. He did not think he could solve this problem. So the first thing we have to do is we have to build it. So we build it with the tiles, the number tiles, and then we have to build it with the decimal set. So 2,000, so we have 2 1,000s here. 500, we have 500s here, 7 10s, and 5 1s. And then we build the 4,582. My son's watching a movie and he's laughing at it, evidently. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is add the units here, and that equals 7. So they would count this out. It adds up to 7. So then all I have to do is get a 7 number tile. That one's easy. So then we got to add 7 and 8, which is 15. So then, knowing that we had already done a lesson with a song that had a verse that said, when you get to 10, you trade it in, I asked him, okay, you've got 15 10s, but when you get to 10, what do you do? And he said, oh, you trade it in, like without hesitation. He knew what that meant. So I said, yes, that's exactly right. So then he traded in 10 of these, and there were 5 left over. So these stayed. He traded this in, and I said, so what are 10 10s? And he said that would be 100. So then we add 100 here. So now we add these up. So we had 10 to begin with. We traded one in and brought in another one. So now we have 11. So again, when you get to 10, what do? You trade it in. So we then trade in 10 of those and bring in another 1,000 cubed. Okay, so now we add up what we have in thousands, and we have 7 thousands, which I've been forgetting to bring these in. So we have 7 thousands, we have 100, we have 5 tens, we have 7 ones. So the answer is 7,157. And of course I told him his answer was correct. I said, did you think that you could do this? And he's like, no. I said, but look, you got the right answer. And he was so proud of himself. So conceptual understanding is so huge in my book. Like I said, he tests so high in math because he has this foundation of conceptual understanding. And it's just made teaching math a joy and very easy to do. It's one of his favorite subjects. He calls this fun math, like he really does. We do fun school on Fridays, and he gets to choose what he wants to do for each subject, and this is what he wants to do for math. We do have a workbook that we use mainly for independent work when we need it. He never chooses that. This is fun math for him, and it is effective and it works. So that concludes my review and my overview of the Schiller Math Kit 1. So thank you so much for sticking with me this far, and if you have any questions, leave them below. I'll do my best to answer them, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.